morning, everybody. Michelle is here. Michelle is here on this Friday. What? July the 24th, 2026. It's Friday. Friday and the place to be. So here I am. I'm under a tree. I'm parked under a tree before I, just to sit here for a minute before I start my day. But I wanted to come on through and say to you, there's more than meets the eye when you look in the mirror and you look at the reflection back to you. I know a lot of us, because I have a mirror up above me here, and sometimes when I look into that mirror, I can see past what's looking back at me. In other words, sometimes what I see is not what's really there. Now, does that sound delusional? Well, listen to what I'm about to say, and you decide. We've been told, since the inception, I believe, that, the mirror is the opening to the soul. A lot of people used to say soul, S-O-U-L. And, and as we know, that word S-O-U-L is a pseudo scientific word. It's meaningless, actually, because none of us have a soul, S-O-U-L. What we have is a consciousness, okay? Consciousness that's developed, and we develop our psyche. We have an unconscious, we have a subconscious, so there's a lot of things that we are being taught, that we were taught decades ago, millennia ago, maybe thousands and thousands of years ago, which was erroneous and which were fallacies. Okay? And it's sad because, a lot of us are going to battle with these so-called experts out there. They're not necessarily going to battle on my behalf, but we're attempting to snap them out of it and help them to get a grip on what they are attempting to tell everybody, what they are attempting to teach everyone. And all because you say you are a scholar, that you have a doctorate or that you have a master's and all of this craziness, that means that you are the expert and that you can't be wrong about what you're telling people. I've said that for a while, that the experts are the ones causing all the massive confusion with their so-called students, with their so-called audience, because they are not allowing themselves to come out of their delusion about what they are comprehending and what they're understanding about knowledge. It has to be logical. It has to be rational. It has to be reasonable. It has to be reproducible. So this garbage about how we were conceptualized, or how we became, or how we became humans and blah blah blah, it goes back 5 billion years, okay, on this planet. But on other planets, it can go back further than that. It could. I don't know. I should say on this planet, well, what I mean by this particular, our particular solar system and blah, 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 blah. Not to relate it with others. So, and this thing of, and this deception and manipulation about how we became human beings is one of the most, that will be proven as one of the most devastating, unconscionable. Our history is troubling enough to have these so-called experts come through and just make it even worse. People are so fixed on how we were created, and they cannot accept that chances are, they're not going to, when they really genuinely figure out how we became to be, they'll take away all this romantic, this attempt to romanticize everything. Okay, it's not that romantic. You know what I mean? And it's simple math. But yet we have these scholars who do not want to stop. They don't want to come off the platform at all. They don't want to be, they want their voices to be heard, whether they're right or wrong. And that's that attention whores, that, as they call them. They want that attention. They want to be the experts. And all because they have all because they themselves are calling themselves scholars. They got a master's degree, they got a doctorate, they got this and that and the other. That means that everybody needs to be listening to them. That's not true at all. You don't need all of that. And in the distant future, a lot of our descendants and our children are going to realize how much time and effort was wasted on so-called education, or the so-called educational system. A lot of them are understanding that it's about self-education. It's about you. It's like I told you about one of my relatives. When she was a toddler, she wanted all of us to read to her. I got to a point, as I said, I got exhausted. And so I pushed her onto my other siblings to read to her. She wanted us to read to her. Read to her. She needed to hear the sounds and tones. And I like pictures. When I'm going, reading a book, I like to see pictures. If I just have to read the text, sometimes I will get distracted that way. But I've overcome that. That has been nipped in the bud over the course of time. That is not necessarily about my vision. It's what I hear, sense, and receive. All of those modalities now come into play, where I can understand and comprehend so much more than I've ever in my life. And that's part of development anyway. But I remember, like I said, with my niece, she wanted, well, I shouldn't say that. My relative wanted, they just wanted me to read to them, and all the rest of my siblings. And now she's soaring. She's a young lady, might as well, young relative of mine, who is soaring in her self-education, in her development, and her environment. Those are the factors that are going to propel her. It's about the culture, the environment, self-education, how you develop at home, or lack thereof. All of those factors may not be necessarily perfect, or necessarily not filled with, mistakes and errors and blah, blah, blah. That's development. With this particular relative I'm talking about, they were difficult, growing up. They were angry and just kind of fighting, the guardians around them, and just, they were pretty calm around me, because I, as an auntie, we know, how the power of the aunties, the power of the aunties, that they really, really matter, in the development, And I told you, our descendants are going to be devastated once they realize the state of the planet and what they have to do in the best of their abilities and best of their skills and abilities to regenerate this planet. Okay, so that they can at least have the basic necessities and not starve. Okay, and not be a casualty of the climate and the infrastructure, because many of them will. There's going to be collateral damage because of our lack of logical, rational, and reasonable behavior and acting. A lot of our descendants are going to realize it's due to the massive overpopulation of people. Okay, I told you about a planet in 2007 that was completely destroyed, and when I say it was destroyed, the humans were destroyed. Okay, a lot of them died in their sleep, and it was billions of them. I think at least 27 billion of them, because of lack of oxygen. There was too many people, massive overpopulation, and so, but some did survive, and guess where? And I told you, guess where they were taken to? Okay, I told you about the original origins of planet Earth. So our scholars, unfortunately, are going to have to learn the hard way. But it doesn't mean that you need to sit around and wait until they do. I'll go back and forth a little bit with some of these so-called teachers online, but then I let it go. If you can't see the writing on the wall, if you can't deal with stuff in a comprehensive understanding and faction, then I don't know what to tell you. A lot of things that they're telling is just so illogical, and it's backwards. Similar to a scholar named Darwin, okay, who turned out to be acting and behaving, in a manipulative, deceptive manner. Because he wanted to be known. He was an attention whore as well. He wanted to be known for something. That's that mediocre man that eventually will go extinct as well. Thankfully for the planet, actually. Thankfully for the planet. But he's the one that claimed that we descended from apes. That is a bunch of garbage. It doesn't even make any sense if you think about it logically, rationally, and really reasonably. How in the world can someone descend from apes? But yet we can't. The apes cannot reproduce humans, and we can't reproduce apes. So here we are on this Friday, attempting to understand each other, and it's not working at all, unfortunately. There will be a lot of casual damage due to lack of initiative to understand and to comprehend what's really, really going on. Okay, if we knew the origin of certain races of people, I told you the majority of the people on the planet came from other planets and worlds that were destroyed. That's why they're here. Okay, chances are we will colonize Mars and colonize the moon and recolonize Mars. We had been there before. Okay, that's why you have certain descendants of the ancestry of Mars having these impulses to go back to Mars. Okay, there's a reason for that. So, and then, of course, like I said, there are other planets that were destroyed. So there's, Earth is it. Okay? And Mars and the moon are not going to be sustainable for all of us. Okay? So Earth is it. Deal with it. And stop romanticizing how we came to be. We came to be via procreation like every other human in the universe. Okay, but it's our procreation that is what's causing the destruction to the planet, because we're over procreation, we're over consuming, gluttony, hoarding, da 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 da. So what I want to leave you with today is be your own scholar. Be your own master of your thoughts, actions, and behaviors, and make yourself accountable for figuring this out and not waiting for the scientists to catch up, because they won't. A lot of these scientists are being paid massive amount of money to shut the fuck up and entertain us, and they're doing a very great job of it. Confuse us? Absolutely. Mislead us? Absolutely, because they know that we are not necessarily self-educating ourselves. We're taking what they say and eating it like it's the best food on the planet. We're eating up what people are telling us, who have these so-called titles, that religious tentacles I told you about. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop it right now, because I have things to do. But I want to send peace and love all over the stars and moon and mountains. It's about universal love at the end of the day. Figure out who you are, what you are, and why you are. And no one has to know.